Hi, my name is Ben Helfon, and I am the co-author of Our Happy Divorce, How Ending Our Marriage Brought Us Closer Together. And I think, as always, not I think, as always, we finally have the whole crew together. Kate Anthony and Susan Guthrie. Hi.
Sorry, last week, you guys. I feel so sad that I missed Elizabeth, but I'm sure it was amazing.
Was amazing,
She's coming
and
back,
Good.
she's
right?
coming next week.
Oh, I'm
We're
gonna.
having a repeat with Dr. Cohen. But I did count, and I said this last week, I did count up your personal days and your sick days. You're out of them for the rest of the year.
Okay. I'm gonna have to take an unpaid leave.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
By the
From
way,
now on, I'll just be unpaid.
on as well. So
What?
it's an unpaid leave. It's an unpaid on. So there's not a lot of difference.
Right. Right.
Well,
Exactly.
You were missed, as always, when you're not here. We're all together, and we're glad to have you back. We have another person from my favorite city in the world. And you learn something new about your friends every day, I guess. Or no, that's not the saying, but that's what I'm going with. Kate Anthony was born in England.
I was.
Who knew?
I was born in London. My mom's British. But that's not why I was born there. I was born there because my dad was doing a show in the West End. He was doing Butterflies Are Free with Blythe Danner,
Gwyneth's
otherwise
mom, right?
otherwise known as Gwyneth's mom, right? And yeah, so he was doing this show that then moved to Broadway. And yeah, they were doing it, and that's actually why they were in the UK, which is great because my mom got to have me. She was 9.5 months pregnant or whatever, and then she got to have me with her family and closest friends around, so that was really good for her. And then we came back to the US, and
How old
then
were you when you came back?
when I was 5 weeks old when we came back. And then they went to dinner at Blythe and Bruce's house, and forgot me because they weren't really used to it. And so they literally got all the way down the block and they were like, oh my God, we forgot the baby.
It's amazing that we all survived, especially the way that at least some of us, like myself, helicopter parent these days, that any of us would have survived the 60s, 70s, and 80s growing up.
It's like 70s parenting, man. New York City. Like,
and no seatbelts, no car seats, no whatever. But anyways, so our guest is Sarah Louise Ryan. She is a leading relationship expert and dating coach and international matchmaker. She's been helping singles find, build, and deepen loving relationships since 2001. Sarah is the CEO and founder of the Love Collective Global, who are leaders in love offline. And we're going to talk to her about what offline means. But Sarah works with her team of love leaders, helping singles find, build, and deepen loving relationships. She also helps businesses learn how they can do the same thing in their offline space. In a nutshell, Sarah coaches, connects, and consults on all things love, dating, and relationships. So without further ado, Louise Ryan. Hello there.
Hello, hello, hello. What a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for welcoming me so kindly.
See, that's why the British are just so much better. They're so cordial and kind and just decent people. Not that Americans are. But thank you for having us. And there's so much that we want to talk to you. I know we had, like a lot of things, so many of the best conversations before we went live. And one thing I'd asked you is the difference between, you mentioned on your website and your blogs a lot about offline, that you specialize in offline, and just tell people who are watching what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is we, as a team, work with people in a space that isn't a dating app, it isn't a website or a platform where people can liaise directly. So as a coach would work, so we have a brand love lessons, which helps people find their own path and figure out who they are and what they want in love and in life. And we have love connections, which is pretty much a traditional matchmaking firm where we get to know singles on a human level and figure out what their values are, how they energetically show up in the world, what their lifestyle is like, and what their wants and goals are for a relationship. And we matchmakers bring them together based on, the shared goals. And we make introductions, very old school, but in a modern way. And we send them on dates and we check in and see how it went, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and constructively feedback. And if it went well, great, they carry on dating. If not, we find out what the constructive feedback was so we can share with both parties so they can take that forward for their next date. I think modern dating is really missing a lot of accountability. So we bring that in, for singles to be accountable to themselves, couples to be accountable to each other in the relationship. And I guess for people to have that responsibility on the dating scene that sometimes doesn't happen in the online space, where they show up and say, here's how it went and here's how I feel, and they have to share that with a human being. So everything we do is completely offline. Right now we're meeting people on Zoom, which isn't quite fully offline, but we'll get back to where we were. In a nutshell, that's what we do.
Great. We also talked about the state of affairs in the dating world and the pandemic and people's sense of urgency. You talk about that?
Gosh, it's something that is absolutely coming up for me and the team at the moment. And yeah, we got into chatting about that before we jumped on. Like you say, all the best chit chat always happens when you're not online, not recording and whatnot. So what's coming up is that if modern dating didn't have the pressures that it does, that show their ugly faces, is actually something I said earlier today. The anxieties and the worries and the fears and the fear of failure, all of those things that show themselves up, I think that they've been heightened post-pandemic. And I know we're not quite post-pandemic, but here in the UK and in other parts of Europe, we're slowly but surely lifting lockdown. And I don't know what it's like in each state in the US right now, but the fact that people can now slowly but surely meet, it's almost like an anxiety that's shown up in a way that people want the next person they meet to be the last person. And it's almost like they're putting that pressure on themselves, or perhaps looking at their peers and their friends and family members who are settled down, and they're thinking, we just lost a heck of a lot of time. And that time that we lost, I now want to pick back up, and I'm not wasting any time. And whilst that's a good thing, it means there could be a death of the hookup culture, which has been really graining on me. Is that the right term? Grating on me, that's the term. Grating on me for such a long time, and for so many singles anyway. I think people are just going to be like, I'm not sinking time, I'm not sinking costs with the wrong kinds of people. The other side of that coin is a heck of a lot of pressure for the next person to be the last person, the most significant person.
Do you find that?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. Do you find part of that is amongst a certain age group, especially women who have biological clocks that are ticking? Like they're like my biological clock is ticking and I lost a year. Or do you find that across the board?
I'm finding it across the board, but what I do find, generally speaking, I'm looking up into the air as though I've got the answers up there and I can just pull them down. Isn't that what we do? We humans, we're so complex and funny, aren't we? Across all of the businesses, only seem to attract singles who are early to mid 30s is probably the youngest age, and I think you can probably understand why. People are like, okay, my 20s was fun, but now I know, I've learned a few lessons there, and I know who I am, and I'm taking a bit of stock now. And it's not that they want what they want and they want it yesterday. It's just that they're they're looking for something more significant. And so whether that comes with taking stock of where they're at and the lessons that they're learning, or the patterns that they want to break, or the habits, or whether it's like, I know who I am, I know what I want, and I'd actually like to hire a matchmaker to help me find it. So I guess to answer your question, we do tend to attract people in their 30s anyway. So that goes hand in hand with biological clock if people don't have children already. But if they do, perhaps it also means that they'd like to have more. But yeah, I'd say that's the biggest pool of people we attract in their 30s.
One thing, as we move, into the divorce space, one thing that I've heard or I've seen or I experienced too is that same sort of rush, and maybe the pandemic, like everything, it sort of sprinkled Miracle-Gro, on that rush. But Kate and Sarah, the rush. You see a lot of people rushing after the divorce to get into the next relationship, and then some of the pitfalls that might bring. So Sarah, if you want to go first with that.
Yeah, well, I think it's the old chestnut of filling a void, isn't it? It's you've been in a significant relationship for such a while, and actually that's a bit of an overstatement, because it might not have been a while. It could be that things didn't work out at whatever stage. But when it comes to dating after divorce, sometimes people can fall into a trap of trying to fill a void of what was. There's a significant other in one's life, and now you found yourself in a chapter that you were never planning for. People don't get married with the idea that they're going to divorce, and so it's the trying to move on quite quickly, whether it's from the pain, or whether it's from a space or a place of loneliness, or whether it's just okay, I really wanted to be in a significant relationship, I need to make that happen, so next please. That's a tricky one, not to fill a void.
Yep.
Kate,
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think for many, for women, and I think this is a increasing problem, and also maybe an increasingly identified problem, but for codependent women, I work with women. I work with women who are coming out of and extricating themselves from abusive situations. So they all grapple with codependency in one way or the other. And so I think that for codependent women, being alone is really hard, and being, it's really confronting. I think most of them need a lot more alone time than they're taking. And I think filling the void, as Sarah said, absolutely, they are filling a void, but it's also not the void left by the man necessarily. It's the void that has been there for, decades, and it's their own void. So when I work with women at that point, I say, date. Dating is a wonderful way to learn about yourself. Dating, if you are capable of putting up that barrier for yourself, and not jumping into a relationship, but actually engaging in a true dating lifestyle, multiple people, multiple dates, it is a phenomenal way to get to know yourself. But if you are the kind of person who, dives deep into relationship after relationship after relationship, and for someone who that is very difficult, and I was one of those, that dating is very difficult, and you suddenly find yourself, oh, but he's different, and he's the one, and or he's it's just, he's amazing, and so I couldn't just date him, right? You're gonna want to slow your fucking roll and not dive into these things, because you're gonna be repeating patterns over and over and over again. And he may be great, but he's not amazing, and you don't know that yet.
The difference between Mr. Right and Mr. Right Now. Sarah, on your website, when I was working on the stream and questions asked, I came across a blog, and it was 5 dating tips post-divorce, and I thought it'd be fun or not fun, but educational to go through each one and have, our experts here weigh in on them too. So, the first one I think we just sort of talked about was taking things slow. And if you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, slow but steady always wins the race, doesn't it? I think we do always want what we want yesterday, and we're constantly listening to the chatter in our head. I mean, it's really difficult for people to find that sense of peace and to be present in the moment. And when they're dating, and just as Kate was saying, with the anxieties that can come up with codependencies, that rushing forward to not fill a void of a person, but of a something. It's like, just slow down and take it easy. And they call it dating for a reason, like you were just saying. They don't just say your date because the next date isn't supposed to be, or it could be, but specifically the last date. Dating is a process of getting to know yourself, getting to know other people, and also those people that come into your into your heart space and into your presence, and you share that energy with. You're checking in on whether their values are aligned with yours, and are your boundaries there? Are they? What's coming up for you? And I think that when you slow burn in dating, not just with a specific person that you find yourself attaching to, it is that process of getting to know yourself on a deep level. And they don't teach us at school or at college how to get to know oneself, and so we have to go through these processes to do just that. So yeah, slow but steady wins the race when it comes to dating and finding love.
Yeah.
Susan, I know that this might fall outside the legal realm, but some of the things that you might see when people don't take it slow, or any advice that you have about taking it slow.
Well, it is outside the family law realm, except it's one of the most common questions we are asked as divorce attorneys, which is, when can I date? I would say, I get asked that question in initial consultations for people who are still married, haven't even told their spouse they want a divorce. And it's a constant. And I think, there is a nuanced answer to it for legal purposes, right? For legal purposes, if you're dating because your relationship is over, there's no, viability to it, and, you're checking other viability, that's one thing. Legally, it doesn't really have much significance in the process. But if you want to piss off your soon-to-be ex-spouse, go ahead and date, and be sure to take them to all the same places that you used to go to with your wife or your husband. Make sure that you introduce them to all of your friends, and most importantly, please introduce them to your children, because that's where people really start to make the big mistakes. And they do it, and I think Sarah just said this in a beautiful way. I'm going to say it less eloquently, but what feels better? Going through a divorce and heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching discussions with your soon-to-be ex and the process of separating out your life, or the fun and excitement of a new love and a person who's going to take the place and fill that slot in your life that's empty right now? You are in a vulnerable position emotionally when you are going through a divorce, where just that euphoric rush of thinking you're in love, whether you are or you aren't, is so compelling, especially when you're feeling that miserable on the other side. And people are, they get into a situation, they're almost desperate to find that. And to me, not a dating expert, not a coach who understands, but just a human being who watches people go through divorce every single day, worst possible circumstances under which to be looking for a relationship.
Okay,
and I want to add to that, Susan. I don't know if you find this, but I hear all the time, like from my clients, how short they dated their soon-to-be ex before they got into their marriages. And to me, I'm like, oh my God, red flag, red flag, red flag, because there's all they get married in the love bombing phase.
Yeah.
Right. Or they just, it's like we were together for 3 months and then it's like, that's the honeymoon phase. And people dive into these relationships so quickly where if they had taken the time, I always say, I don't think you really know someone until you've been dating them for probably at least a year. Because by that time, you've gone through multiple phases, right? At least 9 months to get through the gestational period of the relationship. And then like another 3 months for good measure. You've probably covered a lot of ground at that point, and you actually know a lot about who someone is. So when you're getting married, after you've known someone for 3 months, you're getting married at the pinnacle. That is a bad time. You're not, and I just see it all the time. And in my group, that people just get married too quickly. It's way too fucking quickly.
The just from my personal experience, obviously I'm not a doctor, lawyer, coach, but one of the hardest things, we talk a lot about doing the work, right, and healing, and part of the process that I had to do was be okay with being alone. And the guy I was working with said, you should go to the movies by yourself. And I said, yeah, no, what's the big deal? I'll go to the movie by myself. And I didn't realize what a big deal it was until I walked into the movie theater. And all of a sudden I started, okay, what happens if I run into somebody I know? What happens if, it was almost like I was at a peep show. I had my hat on, I had the thing, because I didn't want to run into anybody I knew, because the dreaded question is, who are you here with, right? And so that, but the exercise really showed me about, intentional, it's easy, at least for me, and I don't know if men out there are all the same, feel this way, but it's a lot easier for me not to realize or feel the pain when there's somebody beautiful sitting next to you saying how great you are and, keeping you warm at night or whatever. So for me, the process of the work and the healing was being okay with being alone. And it was hard. And it was a process. So that was the slow part for me. Number 2 was be true to yourself. There on the list of 5 dating tips post-divorce.
Yeah, being true to yourself is to, have that integrity for yourself, that when you're out there meeting new people, if you're focusing so much on being liked and accepted and wanted, then actually you're not checking in on how you feel about the person in front of you. And I think it's really easy because you want to feel, attractive, and you want to feel engaged, and you want to feel like you can engage in the art of the flirt and feel something good, especially after a divorce or a breakup or, a significant breakdown of a relationship, and you're out there dating again. I think it's really easy for singles or anyone, especially in that vulnerable stage, to get lost in how somebody is, perceiving you, rather than how you feel about them and how they could fit into your life, and are they bringing to the table what you are bringing to the table, or is it just that it was nice to put on a dress or a suit and go out and engage in the theatre of romance for an evening? It's be integral to yourself, and the relationship that you have with yourself will be the longest and the most important. And so if you're constantly looking to be wanted by somebody else, you don't even know if they're permanent yet. Just check in with how you feel about them and how they can bring something to the table in your life, rather than being wanted and accepted by them.
Okay.
I remember when I first started dating after my divorce, and my therapist was like, I don't think do you like him? All I was doing was like, does he like me? Does he like me? And what is the signals he's giving off? And, my focus was all on him. And like, what is he thinking? And what is he? And she was like, what do you like about this guy? And I was like, I realized, like, I did not like him. This man did not fit in my life. And she's like, you got to learn to take your own temperature. You're so busy taking their temperature. You're not taking your own. that was a huge lesson for me. So I stamp of approval on number 1 and number 2. For sure.
Number 3 is manage your dating expectations. Of the 5 dating tips post-divorce on Sarah Louise Ryan's website.
I think it's really important to, if you've been through a divorce or a major breakup, like you surely will have a realistic take on what it takes to make a relationship work. So I think, just because a relationship that you've just had hasn't worked out, don't go in thinking that, the next person will be the right person or the best person because perhaps you've had a bit of an icky breakup or whatever. I think it's taking off the rose-tinted glasses that, and you might have this checklist of all the things that your previous partner didn't bring to the table, but don't think that, Mr. or Miss Perfect is out there, because nobody's perfect. So it's just to, go out there. We talked about love bombing before. I think you mentioned that, Kate, didn't you? Yeah. And just remember that whilst you have all these hormones going around your body while you're hitting your brain and making you feel good when you engage with new people, just find a way to ground yourself, bring yourself to center and just be like, okay, I need to ask more questions on that. I need to get to know this person better. I need to be a realist as to whether they can fit into my life and I could fit into theirs. If you're seriously looking to meet someone, if you're dating for fun, that's another story. And I'm not going to pretend I know every single person's intentions that are tuning in, right? And I think we humans can sometimes just assume that everyone wants the same thing, but there might be people tuning in that are like, well, I just want to check in and see how I feel about myself and learn something new about myself. And that's absolutely fine. Non-judgmental here, but it's just manage your expectations that, not everyone has the same intentions as you. So checking in on that, asking more questions and finding yourself in alignment with people that have the same intentions, have similar values, or at least respect yours and you can respect theirs to bring it to the table. So it's taking off the glasses that are a bit rose tinted and being real and being honest with yourself and with them.
Okay. Dating expectations and managing, what does it mean to you?
I think similar, right? Like I like the idea of like being honest with, about yourself and like your situation, right? Like to just be open and not like, our friend Daniel always says, like, he's right up front. He's like, hey, I'm newly divorced. I am not ready for a relationship. I'm here to date. Be honest about it. Like, if that's what you want, put that up front, right? Like, set the expectations of the other person too, right? Not just yourself, right? But just be honest and straightforward about what it is you're doing and where you're at. And yeah, absolutely. Super important.
I just want to add to that, and I think what you've just said is so valid and so important. I think if you're out there and you have the intentions to get to know yourself, get to know other people, make friends. I mean, if you want to be in a significant relationship in the end, you want to be dating your best friend, so you need to find who that person is by making friends. That's what it is. That's the first and foremost expectation. And I think so many people find themselves in pseudo relationships with people, sinking time and financial costs, emotional costs for some when one party doesn't have the same intentions as the other. And I think your friend Daniel that you just said, I think the fact that he is upfront about that's great, because then he should just be aligning himself with people that have those same intentions. He's being authentic, he's being honest, he's not hurting anyone's feelings, and he's not allowing someone to get into a pseudo relationship with him because he's just aligning himself with those intentions. It's really important.
Yeah.
If I look like him, I think I would have a lot easier time of being honest and upfront.
I always tell the story, like when I saw Daniel on a dating app, I was like, hello. And then I read his profile and he was like not looking for a relationship, like, really just dating and in town because he doesn't live in LA, but he traveled a lot. And so he was just like popping into town. And I was like, I mean,
You never know, he might change his mind.
I'm like, maybe. Daniel,
Susan, anything that you think of when you think about, or what you see when people, their expectations of dating coming out of a divorce or going through the process that
I think flip side of the people, and even the people that ask me as their attorney, or, can I date? When can I date? There's also a lot of fear around it. It's probably, and this, I've heard some version of, there's one client that really stood out for me because she's like, I can't believe that I'm 55 years old, and I have to go out and date. She's like, that is not what my life was supposed to be like. That is not, I don't even know how to do this. And this was, probably, this is when I was still in active practice. So probably 8 or 9 years ago, but she was defeated by it before she even tried it. And that's heartbreaking also, because someone like Sarah or Kate is much more capable of helping someone in that mind space. But that I hear all the time. I really hear that quite often. The fear around it, the terror around it, the feeling of being defeated before they even start. So I also like the tips that Sarah's giving us that are on her blog post, and just the fact that there are people, experts out, coaches out who can help people get back out there, I think is really significant, because it didn't exist when I was talking to that client 8 years ago, what Sarah's doing. And so that would be the other thing is, if you're feeling there, if that's your place of fear or just being stuck, or how does this even happen? Be heartened by the fact that there are people who can help. And just even what you're hearing right here, I think is significant, and know that there's hope. I was talking to Bella Gandhi, who's also a dating expert, the other day, and she mentioned that in 11 years and untold marriages, she's never had a divorce among anyone who's met through her coaching. And I just think about that. Think about the stats on divorce. First marriage is 50%, 67% per second, and 70 some odd 3. I think it's 73% after. For 11 years, she's never had one of her couples go through a divorce. It's possible out there if you do it the right way.
Tag along question for the expectations, and it just came up when Susan was speaking. Obviously the 55-year-old or however long you've been married, a lot of changes have happened in technology, in dating, in the world.
Hell yeah.
You're right. Even like we talked about before, when Nikki and I got divorced, that I tried, Match was, I think, the only one around, and there wasn't, and 14 years later, there's now Tinder, Bumble, Bimble, whatever there is. Is there a Bimbo? I don't know. But
you would have found it.
Don't nobody steal my idea. It's being recorded. But and some things you see maybe of like how overwhelming it could be, or how because there's also the feelings that I think Susan mentioned about guilt and shame and what people are going to think about me. But how do you deal with people and they're coming into this whole new world after being out of it for so long, and coaching them on getting back into it?
It's all about mastering the mindset, isn't it? In fact, I'm so pleased that you kind of picked up on what Susan was saying, because so many things were coming up for me. It's that, we have to let go of whatever expectations we had for ourselves, in life, in all parts. We have to detach ourselves from our expectations for ourselves. Let it go. Like, what will be, will be. And I think that when people become single after 40, let alone 50, I hear so often all the good ones are taken. It's such a limiting belief. Like, why do we tell ourselves these stories about all sorts of things in life? No, not all the good ones are taken, guys and girls. Like, they're out there looking for you too. You just have to persevere. You have to, pick yourself up, stop telling yourself these stories, because there are really great people out there looking to meet somebody like you. I just think it's nerve-wracking. You're meeting a whole bunch of strangers and putting yourself, your most vulnerable self, out there, which is your romantic self, and you're looking to connect and have chemistry with someone. That's a scary place to be. Of course it is, because we're human, and the reason it's scary is because we care. We care about the outcome, but what we have to do is detach ourselves from, the thought in our mind of where we should be, or what we should have achieved, or what should have happened. Let go of all of the shouldas and just go for it. He or she is looking for you too. That's it. They're not all taken.
Another one of my favorite expressions, don't should all over yourself.
It's exactly what I was thinking.
Right. Write a number 4 on your list of 5 dating tips post-divorce. Write your list to attract love. And if you could just differentiate, because of those expectations and a list, and what the difference between a list and expectations are.
Good question. So,
Mark down the time and date.
I
Doesn't
have
happen
actually
very often.
been working on this quite a lot lately. Just, it's like a guide, setting yourself up for 2021 love success. And a list, there's a few different lists that one can make. And one is creating a list of all of the bad habits. I don't really like using those kind of terms like good and bad or whatever, but whatever you identify in your life that isn't serving you, that you want to switch up. So if you're seriously looking to meet somebody and you are actually saying, oh, all the good ones are taken, and all you do is spend 20 minutes on Bimble, let's call it Bimble because that's the new dating app we just created. All you're doing is spending 20 minutes on Bimble a day, not engaging or making any moves. And then you go and tell all of your friends that online dating or dating in general isn't working, and you haven't been on one date yet. But then you'll spend 7 or 8 hours on an evening eating popcorn and watching Netflix. Like, be accountable to your habits. Like, be intentional in how you're showing up for what it is that you truly want. So if you're going to come from a place of lack, then you're going to attract more lack into your life. So if you want to come from a place of love for yourself and you want to attract love, you've got to get rid of all of those habits that aren't serving you, and invest time, invest energy in yourself and the process. So that's one kind of list. The second kind of list is kind of getting to grips with what your values actually are. So it's one thing to say, I'm loyal and I'm honest.